Assuming no other changes, do you think SF5 would be better or worse, straight up removing non-DP crush counters? I'd have to think about that, because the thing is, if you remove non-DP crush counters, it makes many heavy attacks much less useful. Because you can tell that many of the heavies in this game were built around crushing, right? Like, let's think about some of the heavy attacks that I don't know, they just wouldn't be useful without it. Like, they don't counter hit combo, they don't do a lot of, like, a crazy amount of damage, they're not V-trigger cancelable into a lot of damage. A lot of them would just kind of be not built for the same kind of idea. The problem with Street Fighter 5, and I've heard a lot of people just say, take out the priority system. Or, you know, remove the priority system, remove crush counters. Like, a lot of the game is built with these ideas in mind. The way frame data is built in Street Fighter 5 is designed around the priority system. Right? Many of the characters and frame traps and the frames on almost everything is designed around the priority system. Like, if you have a situation that's like, I don't know, let's say your character has a 6-frame medium that they use to combo with, right? And you have a move that's, I don't know, +2, right? If you have a move that's +2 and you're fighting against a character with a 4-frame button, then you use your 6-frame medium and it frame traps their jab. Every time, no matter what. If it was Street Fighter 4, that scenario, the buttons would trade. Right? The buttons would just trade against each other. But in Street Fighter 5, the priority says that the medium button will win. Right? The medium button will always win because they hit on the same frame and the priority goes to the medium button. So, the thing is if you just changed all the frame, if you just took away the priority system, many characters would just not have frame traps anymore. You'd have to redesign the frame data for many of the characters, right? You have to change you'd have to be like, well, now his light punch is +3 instead of +2. His medium button is 5 frames instead of 6 frames. This one is like +1 instead of 0. And you'd have to change you'd have to do that for like 25 characters or whatever, right? Like, many characters have to change dramatically. You'd have to like completely change how frame trapping works, because if they just make the priority system not exist anymore, then a lot of the like moves just don't work the same, right? It's why if there's a 3-frame fierce, it would just be the best button in the game, because it just works. It would just beat everything always, right? You'd have to build the frame data from the ground up to be different, right? You can't just be like, well, I've been saying forever, I'm an expert, that they should just remove priority system. Everything would be fine after that. Like, it's like, well, are you going to be the one that has to go crunch the numbers and rebuild all the fucking frame data on everything? Like, what are you going to do? You know? Yeah, so neutral crush counters, that's a good point. A lot of people just say, well, just make it so that crush counters only work on DPs, right? Make it so that you can't get crush counters in other places. They'd have to redesign a lot of the ideas behind heavy buttons. They'd have to redesign a lot of the heavy buttons. They should just untick the priority system box in the code. Yeah, there's a button that says, fix Street Fighter 5, remove priority system. You untick it and the game just works. It wouldn't. The game would be... the game would just not work. Yeah, a lot of people say that Street Fighter 5... Right, Brian brings up a good point. If you don't like the design of Street Fighter 5, that's fine. But there are many people who don't understand why the game is built the way it is, that just want it to change. You hear 2 common sentences said about Street Fighter 5. This is very common. You hear one person say that the game is so simple that anybody could figure it out. We're at the maximum possible understanding of the game because it's so easy that anybody could figure it out. And the second thing you hear is, just remove the priority system and crush counters and everything would be fine. And I'm just like, what's crazy is you're admitting that you don't study the game because you think it's easy, but then you're suggesting changes for the game because you're so smart you have it figured out. I'm like, well, look, you don't understand the game because you don't watch it, or you don't study it, so you think you know what you're talking about. And then you're suggesting changes built from an understanding where you don't know anything about the fucking game. So if you say the game is so simple, just do this and it's fixed, and then you say, all right, like, this game is so simple, everybody has it figured out, so I don't even need to study it because I just know how it works because it's such a simple game. And then you suggest changes from an position of ignorance, then those are just, they doesn't work. You know, those two things don't add up, right? If you understand how the game was built, the design of the game to make frame traps work in certain situations or not and stuff like that, then it makes sense, right? That's just how it goes. But those are the two most common sentences you hear, right? It's crazy. Designing fighting games are super fucking hard. Yeah, dude. The designs in KI are insane, right? That's a good example of Killer Instinct. Killer Instinct is a wildly designed game. It has so many crazy characters and archetypes, and it's like super fun. And from the outside, many people were like, wow, these are some of the coolest designs ever. But on the inside, the players were like, these guys were so stupid. How could they not have known that this character with fucking 50 different moves that are all over the place, that this one tiny interaction would happen? And it's like, well, dude, when you're designing a character like this, you put 1,000 different cool things into a character. How are you supposed to, figure this out, right? Like, designing fighting games is really hard, especially because now there's a higher demand for like perfection than ever, right? It's not like you can just get away with like, designing shit. People are just like, well, leave it, it's fine. Everybody's like, no, fix that character, fucking nerf that character, buff that character, change that character. So you have all these like situations where you're like, oh shit, we got to design this character in this way. Like, we have this move that's really powerful, but is it too hard to deal with? Like, all this stuff. There's like so many ideas. I would never want to make a fighting game. I would never want to make a fighting game because some asshole who sucks at it would yell at me to change it. And I'd be like, well, maybe you should get better at it. And then they'd just be mad at me, right? There's like so much that goes into every decision when it comes to building and creating fighting games that it's crazy. And I mean that mostly, not even just for Street Fighter. I mean that mostly, I was thinking mostly about KI for this. Because KI is one of those games where it's like, I don't know how you design the characters in that game and even try to find balance, but they did. It's the most impressive thing that I could ever think of. It's wild. But anyway, you can't just change the priority system. It's really hard. The original conversation was about crush counters, and I don't know what would happen if you remove neutral crush counters. I think you'd have to redesign how some of the heavy buttons work, but you could probably do it. I don't know. Did you see the stuff? Oh, you're talking about the main man stuff. Main man his ideas aren't that wrong, but his argument was, he didn't use the right words in his argument. That's what happened with Main Man. He didn't use the right words in his argument. I talked about this on my YouTube before, but it's more a conversation about the ease of use and strength and like kind of how degenerate moves can be versus the difficulty of use. That's what he is kind of thinking about. It's an interesting conversation for sure, but I'll get into that later. I don't know, but there recently been talks about KI Cup 2018, so I'm not sure. You think SF5 without neutral crush counters is a worse, less interesting game? I'm kind of with you. I think people just see crush counters and they are like, man, that does a lot of damage. That's really bad. But I worry about some of the games, some of the characters. Like, I imagine, we'll just let this play since, we're just watching the match, and the outcome is what we're interested in. Wow, Sokka game 1. Here's the thing. I think that if you remove neutral crush counters, many characters would lose their ability to counter poke against mediums. Because one of the issues people have right now is whiff punishing medium attacks, right? So if I'm playing Urian, and I'm like, man, this Cammy player or this Karen player has like a 5 or 6 frame medium button that they're just fucking destroying me with. And I'm trying to whiff punish it, it's not working. I'm just going to think to myself, look, I know he's going to hit this medium button. I'm going to do standing fears to crush it because, like, I can't counter poke it with my own medium. My mediums are too slow, and I'm not able to whiff punish it at the range I want to stand at. So I'm going to use my fierce to counter poke it and crush counter that shit, right? So that's kind of like the philosophy that I think about. So to me, that's like, it's a decision that I make as a Urian player to crush a move that's medium because I know that the priority for my heavy will beat it. Right? Yeah, that move right there, standing roundhouse from Nikali, would be fine, right? It's V-trigger cancelable. It's, it would be a functional heavy button without the crush counter. There's nothing interesting about crush counters. If you don't think watching a crush counter animation is cool, I don't know what to tell you. Crush counters are fucking cool. Tell me that they don't look cool. Like, crush and you just fucking explode into a million pieces. It's tight.
It's sealed. He knows better than to do. Oh my god, I can't believe he did it.
Point blank is okay. You can use it that close, but anywhere mid-screen or further, overhead.
Damn, is that how you feel? Is that how you feel, Sako? Why does it need the crush counter? I don't know. They've built the game to be a game where crush counters exist. It's a feature they have in the game. They want these exciting, big, impactful, heavy buttons. Because if you think about the design of the buttons in Street Fighter 4, I can't believe that didn't reach. That sucks.
A little bit too slow there. All right, spends a bar just to get in, just to start this pressure.
What's it called? Yeah, they also build V-Trigger. That's true, too. If you think about, what's it called? Street Fighter 4's buttons, the problem with that game is that there were many kind of sort of spammable, safe buttons from a very far distance. So the footsies were just like, oh, man. Fucking, I have to deal with Rose hitting roundhouse from half screen over and over and over and over. And like, if you don't have a good counter poke, what did you do? You jumped. That was a fake demon setup. Oh, he fucked up. He should win right here.
I hope this isn't a clip.
But look, Akani activating does not have access to V reversal now, so Sako can chip. Any block attack, that's it.
Yeah, chip. Nothing he could do. Replace crush counter with danger time. I fucking hate danger time. Every time I get hit at danger time, I don't know a combo, and my opponent does fucking 90% damage. I'm like, god damn it. If I knew a good danger time combo, I'm sure I'd love it. But I don't know any good danger time combos.
Yes, we did. We just saw reverse 3-0 too.
If I knew a good danger time combos, I'd be like, man.
On these kind of stages.
Counting across, but no combo here from Sako.
I mean, you just make a crush counters make you make decisions. Like, so many people are uninformed about the way it works. Have you ever watched Punk play the game? Like, watch Punk play against a character who swings with crush counter buttons a lot, right? Watch Punk play against a Urian player who just mashes Fierce over and over. Punk's gonna walk up to him, let him whiff this dumbass Fierce, and then whiff punish with low forward Tenko. And he's gonna do it 9 times. And then the one time the Fierce hits him, you guys are gonna be like, oh, look at the crush counter, it's so stupid. But you don't count the 9 times before that where he gets whiff punish, right? The reason why, like, it's just, I don't know. I don't know what you want. It's clearly designed in a certain way. Uninformed. It's because there's these armchair analysts who do the same shit over and over. They say, well, you know, Street Fighter's a simple game. No, you don't even need to study it to know how it works. That was a good whiff punish. You don't even need to study it to know how it works. And then they're like, well, you know how you'd fix the game. I know exactly how you fix the game.